Well, there's a bevy of polls out this week. We've got Ipsos Reid showing the Liberals up, the Conservatives down. We've got Ecos showing the Conservatives way up on the tip of majority, and we've got Nanos bouncing them all around. There isn't a clear trend line. It's more of follow the bouncing ball. Ray Hurd's been watching political campaigns since Moses was in short pants. He joins me now from Toronto. Ray, what are you to make of this? I know you're really interested in the latest Ecos poll, but it's one of many, and instead of showing a clear direction, they seem to be contradicting each other.
However, the Ecos one just came out this morning. The Liberal Toronto Star, which has been a propaganda sheet for Justin Trudeau, says Harper, according to this poll, has a commanding lead. And the interesting thing is that the new Tory lead, which, by the way, Brian, I don't want to boast too much, I predicted this on Twitter 6 months ago, that Harper would, in the last half of the campaign, get his act together and go ahead. The reason this is important is that it's the latest poll, and it shows that this trend is across Canada, except for the Atlantic provinces, which do not have nearly as many votes. So this is a major breakthrough. I think
it's not the first poll showing the Conservatives going up in Quebec, which is interesting. And I was talking with Eric Duhaime about that yesterday, about the impact of the Niqab story on voter sentiment there.
Yes, and I think that the English-speaking media has been very unfair because they are blaming the Tories and Harper for exploiting the Niqab row, when in fact the Bloc Québécois has gone much further than the Tories. The Bloc Québécois is demonizing Muslim people in Quebec, and the polls show that Quebecers, who, by the way, suffered an act of terrorism in Quebec at Saint-Jean, 2 days, I think, before the Ottawa shootings. Okay, so this is significant. It shows that public opinion in Canada is more small c conservative on this issue of terrorism and Islam fascism, call it what you like, Brian. Yeah. But that doesn't mean to say that they hate Muslims. They hate Muslim terrorists.
Well, Eric Duhaime went out with a tape recorder into the streets of Quebec City, into Muslim neighborhoods, and asked Muslims living in Quebec City, what do you think of the niqab? He said we couldn't find anyone that actually supported it, that wasn't already wearing one. So, there's a disconnect with the English media. The English media are reluctant to talk about this story. With the polls, and I'm not sure what to make of this. I'm never a fan of Ecos polling. I don't like their system, but maybe this is the beginning of a trend. But with the polls showing different results during the week, let me ask you this. Is one campaign running better than the other? From your perspective as someone that's covered more campaigns than I have.
I would say that Harper had a bad start. He should have responded more rapidly on the Syrian refugee crisis, but he's caught up with that. I think behind the scenes, the person driving it with Harper is Jason Kenney, whom I happen to know and like. Jason Kenney is the minister of everything. He's the only one we really hear from, and he is very smart with the media. So I think that Harper shows a trend to getting better and more popular by default. The problem with Justin and Mulcair, both of them have huge problems. Mulcair has the biggest problem because he agrees that if Quebec voted by one vote to separate in a phony election rigged by a separatist government, that could break up Canada. That's going to hurt Mulcair. And Justin's problem is he's taken such a quixotic, bozo view of terrorism. He's against the Canadian mission to bomb ISIS, but he voted for the Anti-Terrorism Act.
Yeah,
and Canadians can see through this. So Harper has been steady. He has not been too strident. He is the leader of the team. I think he has successfully muzzled many candidates, although on the other hand, candidates of all three parties have made terrible screw-ups.
You saw the one in Hamilton, former vice chair of the school board. I mean, what does that say about the education system? She didn't know what Auschwitz was.
No, and also there's an NDP candidate today in the GTA, and I admire this guy. He happens to be from Sri Lanka, but he's a Christian priest. He says he is against abortion and he is against gay marriage. Now, Mulcair has said that's okay, that's his opinion, we respect his opinion, but he will have to vote the way the NDP votes on those two issues. Justin would not have that individual as a candidate in his party.
Well,
Justin insists that you publicly endorse the pro-abortion position. The NDP doesn't go that far. So the NDP is trying to be more moderate. Yes, progressive is one term. More moderate, more middle of the road. Justin seems to be veering to the left. He's done a reverse takeover of NDP policies, just as Kathleen Wynne did when she won the election in Ontario. She moved way to the left of even the NDP. And since she's won, she's gone back to the right and she's doing some pretty dumb things now.
So, well, let me ask you if that will work. Warren Kinsella was pointing out the other day, he found newspaper clippings from 1980 about Pierre Trudeau running very far to the left in the 1980 election when he beat Joe Clark. It seemed to work for Pierre Trudeau then. Will it work for Justin now? Or are people looking, are we in a different place? I think we're in a different place.
It's totally different. Number one, the NDP is a much more serious group, party, and the leader, Mulcair, is much more centrist. He actually once expressed admiration for the ultimate right-winger, Margaret Thatcher. So that's one of the changes. The NDP is definitely more moderate, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The Bloc could be a factor again. Never underrate the Bloc or the separatists, Brian. They might have done disastrously, but Doucette is exploiting this kneecap antagonism. And do you know what they're telling people to do now? And I kind of like this. I might do it. When you vote, wear a ski mask and see if they allow you to vote. Because if Muslim women can vote with all but their eyes covered, why shouldn't Brian Lilly or Ray Hurd be allowed to do the same?
I have to hit up the advanced polls. I should try it.
Yeah, we'll do that. And they'll probably frog march you out of there. But if you happen to be, and how do we know that the person isn't a terrorist who's voting?
Or a non-citizen. Look, there's an apartment complex, home to many immigrants, home to many women that wear the niqab in Ottawa, and it's also right on a major transit hub line. I talked to the drivers. They know that the women who get their photo ID done with the niqab on send the bus pass around between each other because you can't tell who's who. So how do you know it's even a citizen voting? How do you know this person isn't, misrepresenting themselves?
Justice in a democracy like Canada is indivisible. There cannot be one form of justice for some people and another form for other people. And once you break that, and this is what may happen in Canada if we're not careful. It's why I think Harper should win. Once you start playing around by treating different people different ways, you get apartheid. And we don't want that in Canada. We don't want sexual apartheid, religious apartheid, or ethnic apartheid.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, the Supreme Court's already headed that way, allowing people to testify in court with their faces covered. Ray, I'll leave you with this question. Prediction for October 19th. Are you ready to make one now?
I've been making it for weeks now. I think it'll be a slender Tory majority government.
All right. Well, we'll check back with you on the 19th and see how that turns out. I still say it's a possibility, a path to victory, but I'm not ready to count the NDP out yet. Still don't see a path for the Liberals, but Campaigns matter. Things can change. Ray, great talking to you as always.
Thanks, Brian.